Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Some people trigger others by trying too hard. Sigma females trigger others by doing absolutely nothing. That's the unsettling truth most people don't want to admit. In every social circle, workplace or family, there's always that one woman who doesn't chase attention, doesn't perform for approval, and somehow still manages to make people uncomfortable without opening her mouth. And here's the shocking part. According to recent behavioral studies, humans feel more threatened by unpredictable personalities than openly aggressive ones. Meaning, a calm, self-contained woman can psychologically intimidate people more than someone who's actually loud or confrontational. That's exactly why Sigma females naturally get under people's skin. Their presence disrupts the social autopilot everyone else operates on. They're not trying to be mysterious, intimidating, or different. They just are. And that quiet authenticity exposes how artificial, insecure, or approval-addicted many others have become. You'll see people react to them in the funniest ways too. Some get confused, some get defensive, some suddenly become amateur psychologists, saying things like, "She must be hiding something." No, she's not hiding anything. She just doesn't feel the need to narrate her life story like a Netflix documentary. So buckle up, because once you understand why Sigma females trigger people without even lifting a finger, you'll realize it's not magic, not attitude, and definitely not coincidence. It's psychology, energy, and a kind of self-possession that most people only pretend to have. Let's get into it. Number 1. They don't broadcast their identity, and it robs others of labels to control them. Sigma females have this quiet, almost invisible superpower. They refuse to hand people a label to hang them on. In a world where everyone wants to define, categorize, and slot others into neat boxes, this drives people insane. Most people are comfortable only when they know exactly where someone belongs. What clique, what personality type, what social status, what agenda. Sigma females break that pattern effortlessly. They don't parade their identity like a banner. They don't announce what they are or what they stand for, and they don't feel the need to explain themselves. This makes people feel uncomfortable because suddenly the rules of social control don't apply. When others meet a Sigma female, they instinctively try to analyze her. Is she arrogant? Is she shy? Is she approachable? Is she a threat? And every time they try to pin her down, she shifts. Her calm autonomy acts like a mirror, reflecting everyone else's insecurities and assumptions back at them. People start questioning themselves instead of her, which is exactly why she triggers them. It's not about superiority, it's about freedom. She is free to define herself internally in her own terms without waiting for permission or validation. Most people broadcast their identity because they want approval or fear being overlooked. Sigma females have none of that anxiety. They walk through life without needing to be seen or validated in a way that satisfies others. That silence is unnerving because it forces people to confront how much of their own life is performative. They realize they rely on labels, gossip, and assumptions to feel secure in social settings, and suddenly a Sigma female exposes how flimsy all of that really is. The end result is almost surgical. By refusing to participate in the labeling game, Sigma females destabilize the social equilibrium around them. People don't know how to react. They can't categorize, can't manipulate, can't predict. And that's exactly why they trigger others naturally, effortlessly, and repeatedly, without even trying. It's a kind of power that doesn't shout, it simply exists, and it quietly reshapes the room. Number 2, they don't outsource their self-worth. One of the most unsettling things about Sigma females is that their sense of value isn't borrowed from anyone else. They don't need constant validation, praise, or approval to feel whole, and that makes people around them uncomfortable in ways they rarely understand. Most of the world operates on a system of external approval. Likes, compliments, attention, or social reinforcement are what prop up people's self-esteem. When a Sigma female walks into a room, she immediately exposes how fragile that reliance is. Her confidence doesn't come from others, it comes from within. And when someone sees that, it forces them to face their own dependency on validation, which feels threatening and frustrating. This internal self-reliance doesn't make her arrogant. It makes her unshakable. She doesn't adjust herself to gain acceptance or bend to meet expectations. Her choices, her opinions, her behavior, they all flow from her own compass, not from a need to be liked or admired. People instinctively sense this and feel a mix of confusion, irritation, and even envy. They are used to measuring worth in visible metrics, but she refuses to play that game. She doesn't hand out cues for people to assess her value because it simply doesn't matter to her. It's not just her independence that triggers others, it's how effortless it is. She doesn't announce it or prove it. She simply carries herself with a quiet assurance that her value isn't up for debate or negotiation. And that is what makes people feel small or insecure without her even saying a word. They start questioning themselves. Why do I seek so much approval? Why do I care so much about being liked? Why am I so easily shaken by others' opinions? Her self-contained nature becomes a mirror reflecting the insecurity of those around her. People are disturbed by it because it exposes a truth they prefer to ignore, that most of their self-worth is borrowed and fragile, while hers is self-made and untouchable. And that contrast, whether they admit it or not, is exactly why Sigma females naturally trigger people. It's not malicious. It's just the quiet force of someone who has no need for external validation, standing unbothered in a world that desperately does. Number 3, they don't emotionally tiptoe around egos. Sigma females have this rare ability to interact with people without constantly softening their words to protect fragile egos, and that alone makes many uncomfortable. Most social interactions revolve around careful navigation. People sugarcoat, over-apologize, or hide their opinions to avoid ruffling feathers. Sigma females don't operate that way. They speak with honesty, clarity, and intention, even if it makes someone feel exposed or defensive. It's not cruelty, it's refusal to compromise truth for comfort. And that refusal triggers people because it forces them to confront parts of themselves they usually ignore. The discomfort comes from the collision between expectation and reality. People expect women to cushion their feedback, to keep emotions smooth, and to maintain a safe space for others' egos. When a Sigma female refuses to comply with those unspoken social rules, it makes people feel raw. Even small interactions, a direct observation, a subtle boundary, or an unflinching opinion, can spark disproportionate reactions. People aren't used to being seen clearly without the buffer of social niceties, and she provides none. What's fascinating is that this behavior isn't about power or domination, it's about self-respect and integrity. Sigma females understand that bending for someone else's ego only diminishes themselves over time. They don't compromise their truth to make others comfortable, and that creates tension because it exposes how many people are trapped in constant ego maintenance. The effect is almost magnetic. People are drawn in, even as they feel challenged or uncomfortable. They sense honesty in its purest form, which they secretly admire, but are often too insecure to handle. This triggers defensive mechanisms, judgment, gossip, or attempts to control the interaction, but none of it changes the reality. Sigma females simply don't tiptoe. They move through life with an emotional directness that's rare, unsettling, and quietly commanding. It's this unfiltered authenticity combined with refusal to cater to ego that makes Sigma females naturally trigger people, leaving them simultaneously intrigued, frustrated, and profoundly aware of their own insecurities. Number 4. They don't chase opportunities. They build alternatives. One of the most unsettling traits of Sigma females is that they don't beg, chase, or scramble for what they want. In a world where most people hustle desperately for recognition, favors, or opportunities, she takes a completely different approach. She creates her own path. She doesn't run after validation or position. She designs alternatives that don't depend on anyone else's permission. This independence triggers people because it flips the script. While others are busy competing in a system designed to measure worth through scarcity, she quietly operates outside it, making the whole game feel irrelevant. When people see her pass on something they would consider a golden opportunity, they get confused, defensive, and sometimes resentful. They assume she must be missing out or underestimating herself. But she isn't careless or ignorant. She's strategic. Sigma females recognize that opportunities are rarely fixed, that systems are often flawed, and that relying on someone else's choice is a trap. Instead, she builds her own networks, her own projects, her own avenues for growth. The power here is subtle but unmistakable. She is untouchable by the usual pressures because she is not dependent on anyone to validate or enable her success. This approach also exposes the desperation and insecurity of others. People who chase opportunities aggressively often do so out of fear of being left behind. They assume everyone else feels that same need. When they encounter a Sigma female who calmly sidesteps the race and designs her own lane, it forces them to confront the hollowness of their efforts. It's frustrating because it's silent, effortless, and unshakable. She doesn't compete, complain, or explain. She simply exists beyond the usual scramble, and that alone triggers people who are locked in their chase. Her ability to build alternatives is a combination of vision, patience, and self-assurance. She doesn't need approval, she doesn't need permission, and she doesn't need to justify her choices. People are disturbed because they see a model of freedom and control that most of them can't access or even imagine. That's why Sigma females trigger people so naturally, because they operate outside the rules everyone else is obsessed with, quietly proving that chasing is optional and independence is absolute. Number 5. They don't overshare, and that threatens people who need leverage. Sigma females have this uncanny ability to keep their inner world sealed, and it drives people crazy without them even realizing why. Most social interactions thrive on information exchange. People bond, manipulate, and influence each other through details, gossip, or emotional exposure. Sigma females refuse to participate in that system. They don't hand over pieces of themselves for others to use, judge, or control. This creates a subtle but powerful sense of threat for anyone who relies on personal knowledge as a tool of influence. By not oversharing, Sigma females deny people the usual levers of control. Many individuals feel comfort in having access to someone's thoughts, feelings, or past experiences because it allows them to predict, manipulate, or assert dominance. With a Sigma female, that grip doesn't exist. She doesn't feed narratives, provide ammunition, or reveal her motivations. She simply moves through life with a quiet autonomy, and people around her have nothing to hold on to. That absence of information triggers insecurity because humans instinctively crave predictability in social dynamics. Her restraint isn't calculated to provoke or intimidate. It's a natural extension of her self-sufficiency. She understands that her value isn't determined by what she reveals or hides. It's inherent, untouchable, and independent of others' perceptions. By keeping her inner life private, she maintains full control over her own narrative. People around her, accustomed to influencing others through access to their thoughts or emotions, feel frustrated, powerless, and even resentful. What's fascinating is that this subtle refusal creates an aura of mystery and respect simultaneously. It forces others to engage with her on her terms, not theirs. They may try to guess, manipulate, or pry, but none of it works. That quiet, unyielding self-containment challenges people's assumptions, exposes their dependence on control, and triggers emotional reactions they can't easily rationalize. Sigma females don't overshare because they don't need to, and that simple refusal to play by the rules of social leverage makes them profoundly unsettling, magnetic, and naturally triggering to those around them. Number 6. They don't confuse niceness with respect. One of the most striking things about Sigma females is that they make a clear distinction between being nice and being respectful, and that distinction unnerves people more than they realize. Most social interactions, especially for women, are expected to be coated in niceness, smiles, agreement, flattery, and accommodating behavior. People have been conditioned to equate pleasantness with value or influence, and they assume everyone operates that way. Sigma females don't. They treat respect as the baseline, but niceness is optional. This flips social expectations on their head and makes others feel insecure without even knowing why. When a Sigma female interacts with someone, she doesn't feel obligated to sugarcoat her behavior just to make someone comfortable. If someone deserves acknowledgement or courtesy, she gives it. If someone is being manipulative, toxic, or unnecessary, she doesn't cushion her response just to avoid offending them. She respects people for who they are, not for how they perform for her. That approach is deeply unsettling because it exposes how transactional many social niceties actually are. People are used to being placated for the sake of appearances, and suddenly that placation disappears. They're left with a woman who won't inflate their ego just to keep the peace. This ability to separate respect from niceness makes Sigma females inherently powerful and naturally triggering. They aren't cruel or hostile. They simply refuse to play by the unspoken social rules that rely on flattery, pretense, or performative politeness. People quickly realize that their usual strategies of manipulation or control, subtle flattery, gossip, overfamiliarity, won't work. There's no shortcut to influence her. That quiet, unapologetic standard exposes the superficiality of many social interactions, and it makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own dependence on niceness to feel valued. The result is a mix of admiration, frustration, and sometimes fear. Sigma females don't need to be liked to command respect, and that combination, the ability to be respected without being conventionally nice, makes them a social anomaly. It's subtle, it's effective, and it triggers people naturally because it challenges everything they've been taught about influence, approval, and how women are supposed to behave. Number 7. They refuse to participate in social subtlety games. Sigma females have an uncanny ability to move through social situations without engaging in the endless games most people rely on to navigate relationships. These games, the subtle manipulations, passive-aggressive hints, unspoken hierarchies, and carefully measured emotional nudges are how most people maintain control, gain advantage, or feel safe in social circles. Sigma females, however, don't play. They don't drop hints, they don't use people's expectations against them, and they don't pretend to follow invisible rules just to keep everyone comfortable. This refusal unsettles people because it exposes just how much of their social behavior is performative. For many, relationships and social structures operate like a chessboard, with every move calculated to maintain influence or status. Sigma females bypass all of that. They interact directly, honestly, and on their own terms. That kind of transparency is rare, and it makes people anxious because they can't predict or manipulate the interaction. When someone is used to reading between the lines to gain leverage, they suddenly find themselves without the usual cues or advantages. That absence of control is disorienting, and it triggers defensive reactions ranging from confusion to resentment. What's fascinating is that this detachment from social games isn't about rebellion or ego, it's about clarity and self-possession. Sigma females understand that playing along with manipulative or performative behaviors drains energy and distorts relationships. They conserve their focus for what truly matters, and their refusal to engage in trivial social maneuvering highlights the superficiality and insecurity of those who do. People are forced to confront the fact that much of their influence depends on subtlety, tactics, and social pressure, tools that simply don't work on a Sigma female. The result is both magnetic and infuriating. Her presence challenges the very structure of social interaction around her, forcing people to meet her on honest, direct terms or risk being exposed for their own insecurities. That's why Sigma females trigger people naturally. They refuse to bend to the silent rules everyone else obsesses over, and in doing so, they reveal the fragility of the social games that keep most people comfortable. It's effortless, unshakable, and quietly disruptive. Number 8. They don't appear impressed by status symbols. Sigma females have a way of seeing the world that completely bypasses the usual markers of status, and that unnerves people more than they can admit. In society, most people measure success, value, or influence by external signs: titles, money, flashy possessions, followers, or popularity. These symbols create a sense of hierarchy and predictability, letting people know where they stand in relation to others. Sigma females, however, are immune to this superficial system. A fancy car, a big house, or an impressive job title doesn't automatically earn their respect, and that instantly triggers anyone whose self-worth relies on those symbols. This indifference isn't arrogance, it's clarity. Sigma females understand that material displays and social accolades don't define a person's intelligence, integrity, or character. They evaluate individuals based on depth, authenticity, and competence, not on what can be seen, measured, or flaunted. This perspective exposes a truth most people avoid admitting. The world is full of insecurity masked as status, and many achievements are celebrated for show rather than substance. When a Sigma female doesn't react with admiration or envy, it highlights how much of people's self-esteem depends on being recognized or admired for the wrong reasons. People often misinterpret this detachment as judgment or disdain. They panic internally because they can't predict her reaction. They assume everyone will be impressed by the symbols they work so hard to acquire. But she sees right through it, and her calm, unaffected demeanor forces others to confront their own shallow measures of worth. That silent challenge is deeply unsettling because it strips away the protective illusions people cling to. Her lack of impressionability also changes the dynamics of influence. Manipulation through status, charm, or materialism simply doesn't work on her. People who rely on these tactics suddenly feel powerless, exposed, and irritated all at once. Sigma females trigger others naturally because they operate on a completely different metric of value, one that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. Their quiet indifference to status symbols is more than a personality trait. It's a disruptive force, a mirror reflecting the insecurities and superficial priorities of everyone around them. Number 9. Their inner life is too rich to be easily influenced. Sigma females possess an inner world that is dense, intricate, and fully self-sufficient, and that is exactly what triggers people around them. Most individuals are accustomed to influencing others through opinion, trend, or peer pressure, assuming that social proof or external circumstances can shape someone's thoughts and actions. With a Sigma female, none of that works. Her thoughts, priorities, and emotional balance are cultivated internally, independent of outside validation or interference. People feel this immediately, and it unnerves them because they realize their usual methods of influence are powerless. This richness isn't just about intelligence or creativity, it's about autonomy. Her inner life provides her with clarity, resilience, and perspective that doesn't require anyone else's approval or participation. While most people rely on social reinforcement to guide decisions, seek motivation, or validate feelings, she operates from her own compass. This makes her unshakable in the face of criticism, trends, or manipulation. She doesn't absorb chaos, gossip, or pressure from others because she has already built a world inside herself where her sense of worth and direction is secure. The effect on those around her is profound and often uncomfortable. People instinctively try to exert influence through opinions, advice, persuasion, or even subtle manipulation, but they hit an invisible wall. They can't redirect her energy or compromise her perspective because it is self-contained. That inability to control or affect her triggers feelings of frustration, envy, and even confusion. They notice that she is calm in situations where they feel pressured, decisive when they feel indecisive, and unbothered when they feel anxious. Her inner richness also gives her an aura of mystery. People are drawn to her presence yet feel intimidated because they sense there is a depth they cannot reach or manipulate. That subtle untouchability, combined with her independence, naturally triggers others. Sigma females do not need to dominate, perform, or compete to command influence. Their inner life alone is enough to unsettle people because it silently exposes the fragility, dependency, and superficiality of those around them. It's a quiet, self-sustaining power that makes her untouchable in a world obsessed with control and validation. Number 10. Their confidence isn't loud. It's structural Sigma. Females possess a kind of confidence that doesn't scream for attention or validation, and that's exactly what makes it so unsettling. Most people equate confidence with volume, loud voices, bold gestures, flashy achievements, constant self-promotion. Sigma females operate on a completely different frequency. Their confidence is structural. It's built into who they are, not something they have to perform or announce. It's the quiet, unshakable assurance that doesn't depend on anyone noticing, praising, or even understanding it. And this silent power naturally triggers people who measure worth by external reactions. This structural confidence shows up in countless ways. They make decisions without hesitation, move through social situations without seeking approval, and maintain composure in chaos. Their calm presence suggests they are operating on a level few can comprehend, a level where uncertainty, doubt, and insecurity hold no sway. People around them instinctively feel exposed because their usual tactics, flattery, manipulation, or social maneuvering, don't influence her. Her self-assuredness isn't performative. It doesn't waver based on outcomes or opinions. This creates tension because it forces others to confront the fragility of their own confidence, which often relies on constant external reinforcement. What makes this confidence even more triggering is its subtlety. It doesn't push people away overtly, but it creates a quiet, gravitational pull. Others notice her strength indirectly, in her decisiveness, in how she handles criticism, in how she maintains boundaries without struggle. They realize that no amount of attention, charm, or control can shake her. That realization is uncomfortable because it exposes how performative most social behaviors really are, and it challenges people to examine their own neediness and insecurity. Her structural confidence is a type of invisible authority. It commands respect without demanding it, intimidates without aggression, and influences without overt effort. Sigma females trigger people naturally because they operate from an internal foundation that is immune to external pressures. Their strength isn't flashy, but it's unmovable, and that quiet, undeniable certainty leaves everyone else scrambling to understand why they feel so small in her presence. Number 11. They break rapport without guilt. One of the most unnerving traits of Sigma females is their ability to sever connections, cut ties, or walk away without guilt or hesitation when someone becomes toxic, draining, or manipulative. Most people struggle with endings because social norms, emotional expectations, or guilt pressure them into maintaining relationships they shouldn't. Sigma females operate differently. They don't negotiate their peace or compromise their boundaries to make others comfortable. When a connection no longer serves mutual respect or growth, they disengage cleanly and decisively, leaving others shocked and unsettled. This ability triggers people because it exposes a truth they'd rather ignore. Not everyone is obligated to tolerate their behavior. Many rely on guilt, obligation, or manipulation to maintain social influence, and a Sigma female simply removes herself from the equation without explanation or drama. She doesn't over-explain, apologize excessively, or justify her decisions. Her actions speak louder than words, and the clarity of her boundaries makes people feel powerless. They can't guilt her, confuse her, or negotiate her compliance because she doesn't operate on that system. Her detachment isn't coldness, it's self-preservation. Sigma females understand that their energy is finite and invaluable. They refuse to spend it on people who drain, deceive, or disrespect them. This refusal, however, is alarming to those who expect loyalty at any cost, or who are used to exploiting emotional leverage. They see her decisiveness as harsh or even threatening, but in reality, it's a reflection of her integrity and self-respect. What makes this even more powerful is how effortlessly she does it. There's no drama, no spectacle, just a quiet, unwavering choice to prioritize her own life and peace. People around her are forced to confront their dependence on emotional manipulation, their need for control, and the fragility of their own boundaries. That's why Sigma females naturally trigger people. They break rapport without guilt, and in doing so, they reveal how weak or performative many social connections really are. Their ability to walk away cleanly is not just a personality trait. It's a silent declaration of autonomy that leaves everyone else scrambling to process it. Number 12. They don't follow the emotional temperature in the room. They set it. Sigma females have a rare ability that both fascinates and unsettles people. They don't simply react to the moods, anxieties, or dramas of those around them. They influence and shape them. Most people are emotionally reactive, constantly adjusting to the temperature in a room to fit in, avoid conflict, or gain approval. Sigma females operate differently. They carry their own internal equilibrium and project it outward, subtly altering the energy of everyone nearby. This control over social dynamics, often unintentional, triggers people because it exposes how dependent they are on external emotional cues to feel safe or significant. When others are panicking, gossiping, or overreacting, a Sigma female doesn't mirror the chaos. She remains grounded, composed, and emotionally autonomous. That calm can feel threatening because it highlights how performative or unstable everyone else's behavior is. People notice her influence. They may not understand it consciously, but they feel the shift. Her presence can quiet a noisy room, cool heated arguments, or redirect attention without a single word of command. That subtle power, invisible yet palpable, unsettles those who are used to controlling group dynamics through manipulation, drama, or emotional pressure. What makes this even more disarming is that she doesn't need to try. Sigma females aren't deliberately setting moods to gain control or admiration. Their emotional self-possession is intrinsic, and its effect on others is almost by default. People around them start questioning themselves. Why do I feel calmer or more exposed? Why do I feel like I'm overreacting while she remains unbothered? That confusion triggers defensiveness, envy, or even resentment because it reveals a lack of self-control or awareness in others. Her ability to set the emotional tone naturally commands attention and respect without demanding it. She isn't loud, confrontational, or performative, but her presence shapes the energy around her in ways most people can't consciously resist. That's why Sigma females trigger people so effortlessly. They operate from a place of internal emotional authority that forces others to measure themselves against a standard they rarely meet, leaving them simultaneously unsettled and aware of their own volatility. Sigma females are not just different, they are quietly revolutionary. Every trait, every choice, and every ounce of their self-possession challenges the social norms that most people take for granted. They trigger reactions not because they want to provoke, but because their presence exposes truths that others are too uncomfortable to face. The fragility of borrowed self-worth, the performative nature of social games, the illusion of control, and the dependence on validation that underpins so many relationships. From their unshakable inner life to their structural confidence, Sigma females move through the world on their own terms, untouched by trends, drama, or manipulation. Their calm authority, refusal to conform, and self-contained power create a magnetic yet unsettling energy that people can't help but notice. Understanding Sigma females is not just about explaining why they trigger people. It's about recognizing a rare kind of autonomy that most individuals will never experience. They remind us, often unintentionally, of what it means to live authentically, prioritize one's own peace, and operate from a place of integrity rather than approval. Their presence forces reflection, growth, and sometimes discomfort, but that is precisely what makes them so extraordinary. Sigma females are a living example of power that doesn't shout, influence that doesn't demand, and freedom that can't be contained. They are not here to fit in, to please, or to be understood. They are here to exist fully on their own terms, and in doing so, they leave an indelible mark on everyone around them. If this video opened your eyes to the magnetic, unsettling, and powerful nature of Sigma females, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the psychology of exceptional personalities. Like this video if it made you think, comment with your own experiences or insights, and share it with friends who need to understand the extraordinary force that Sigma females represent. Every interaction, every share, every discussion helps us uncover the truths about human behavior that most people are too afraid to see.